we?
And welcome, Gavin. Welcome, everybody. And glad to be here this morning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't speak if these two are not human. So, as I said before, I don't know what that means. But you can make of it as whatever you wish. So we need to go through because it's going to be. So the next couple of lines, I think we did those as well. Leave all busyness behind, distraction, dwell instead in seclusion and solitude, refrain from meaningless chatter, always keep a check on what you say. The Tibetan says, it says the same. Yeah, busy life, give it up. Gomba. The Tibetan word for monastery, which is gomba, also means solitude. The same, gomba. Actually, they say gomba, but actually it's gomba, and it actually means a solitary place. And Tsongkhapa had the right idea when he built Ganden. He walked 18 kilometers outside of Lhasa until he found this spot. I don't know if any of you have been to Ganden. Have you been to Ganden in Tibet? Yeah, well, it's getting up there. How I managed to get up there, but that's a real gomba. It's in the wilderness. It's away from distraction. Away from this busy life, and seclusion and solitude. Actually, there's not two words. It just says gomba, which can either mean monastery or solitude. So that's obviously something that we can't really do these days, but it's not possible. But anyway, that's what he says. Refrain from meaningless chatter. Yeah. Kawachik, I mean, sort of meaningless talk, Meaningless talk always starts off very kind of harmless, but someone once said, if you speak long enough, you're going to say something that you're going to regret. So, then he says, actually, Tibetan says, always restrain yourself, restrain your speech. Yeah. Interesting that, isn't it? I mean, that sort of attitude of, hold in what you say. I think in the West, we have a tendency to think that I should express myself, regardless of whether it is hurtful or not hurtful or right or wrong, but because it is an expression and holding it in is wrong. And therefore I should express myself and say, because it is something, it is, and we kind of, we conflate bluntness with honesty as if they are the same, but they're not really the same. But I'm not sure that this belief that you have to express everything, even the truth sometimes, is right. I mean, I spent a long time living with Tibetan people, and one thing they have, one particular trait I've noticed is that they do not express everything that's on their mind. And if there's any kind of unpleasantness between people or some kind of friction or tension, when they meet up, they don't discuss it. They let time make its own way, and then slowly, gradually, there are little signals that they give to indicate that it's okay. I had an argument with a Tibetan man, quite a erudite scholar, but quite a bad argument. And we didn't talk to each other for a long time. And I met him in the street. I said, are things all right between us? And he just say anything. And it went on for months. And then one day we were just sitting, and we were sitting in a bar or restaurant in McLeod Gardens. And he said, Gavin, you want a drink? And I knew from that moment that was it. That's the signal that now we are friends again. This is, he didn't voice what he felt. He didn't express himself. but that is how we do. And I think sometimes I think that's the better way. I mean, sometimes it's good to speak, and sometimes it's good to air things. We like to air things, and sometimes it works, but sometimes it leads to more misunderstanding, because if the person who's listening still has some kind of anger or some kind of, you know, rather negative perception, they're not going to receive what you say in a balanced, fair, and honest way. They're going to see it through the lens of their own resentment. So, you know, here it says, Dambaja. Dam means to restrain. It's the same word as vows, the word for vow. The word for vow in Tibetan means restrain. It means to, you know, you keep a vow, you stop. Most vows about not doing things, right? You don't kill, you don't steal, you don't drink, you don't hurt others. They are forms of restraint, which hence the word in Tibetan. So, whereas in English, the word vow is more that you're going to do something. You know, I vow to thee, my country. That's a Christian hymn, isn't it? So there's it. I mean, anyway, yeah. So that's what that means. Keep a check on what you say. And it says, whenever you see your master or preceptor, offer to serve them with devotion and respect. So master here is Lama. Tibetan is Lama. Preceptor is Kempo, which can mean abbot, but here means the one who gives you your monastic vows. Whenever you see them, offer to serve them with devotion and respect. Yes, that's, you know, if you see them, you get up, you offer them a seat, and as much as you can, you know, go and do as whatever you can for them. We all know that. That's quite clear. Those who possess enlightened vision. Those who possess enlightened vision. Those who possess enlightened vision. It says, Tibetan is with the eyes of Dharma. Means possessing the eyes of Dharma. I think it means someone who has a little bit of experience on the path. I'm not quite sure. It's not a technical term, whether that person is an Arya being or not, or it just means the eyes. It's not a technical term. I'm not sure enlightened vision is, but anyway, it's that's what does Jimba say? He says, oh, Dharma eyes. Yes, Dharma eyes. Dharma eyes. And those first setting out on the path, regard them as your spiritual teacher. Dhamma means teacher. Strangely enough, the word Dhamma can also mean Buddha, but here I think it means teacher. So this word regard or look upon, it's an interesting term, because it means something that isn't. You see it as something else. You know, you make an effort to see, like seeing a friend as an enemy and an enemy as a friend. It's a way of deliberately, or sometimes not always deliberately, but in this case, deliberately perceiving someone to be something, even though in reality they may not be that way. Nevertheless, you make an effort to see that. And what makes that easier to accomplish is, you know, any particular sort of analytical meditation that you may have done on emptiness and dependent arising and things not existing from their own side in the way that they appear, that they don't, you know, that there isn't necessarily some kind of real unchanging entity out there. If there was, then you could never see it as anything other than it appears, could you? If it appears as
Gavin, I think you're frozen. Does anyone else have trouble hearing him?
Yes.
Gavin?
Yeah.
We've lost your volume.
You have
You
to
might
pay
want to
the,
turn off his video, might make the audio
Yeah.
better.
That's it. You never
you have to,
change. But you know that we can if you make efforts. Someone who is someone who
you have to pay the bill, Gavin.
you don't like it.
Gavin, we're having trouble hearing you. Maybe turn off your audio and turn it back on. Looks like you're frozen.
Kilty, you might want to text him. Maybe he'll be able to read it, what you're saying, if he can't hear you.
Sine, can you text him? I can put it in the chat. I wonder if he'll read the chat. Let's see.
How's that?
Oh, yes, better. Thank you.
I think what's happening is that the internet is very poor today. I've noticed because it's Saturday and there's a lot of people on the internet watching the football or whatever. And so if it happens, can you just say or raise your hand, or because otherwise I'm talking to myself, which is something I do a lot anyway. So
Okay,
it doesn't
yeah.
really matter. Nothing new there. I don't know, where was I? Oh yeah. The idea, why I'm dwelling on this is because the subject of seeing the guru as the Buddha is a big thing and quite a big sort of issue, you know, and
We've lost you again. You're not getting your sound.
Atisha's commentary on the fifth Lama's law. Can you can you hear me? Can you,
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you now.
yes,
Yes.
now we can hear.
Much better.
well, if it stops again, there's no point carrying on. Could we reschedule for another day or
Yeah,
because it might, you know, I'm getting a message here. My internet is unstable.
Hmm.
Hello?
Yes.
Why don't you try turning off your
Have I got-
video and just do with the sound? Let's see if that works.
Okay. So the video's off now.
okay. We can hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, clearly.
It's good now.
Okay, well, it might be good, but I mean, I've just said if it carries on,
Okay.
then you know we should just stop.
Yes, we can do
Anyway.
that too.
Okay, so yes, this issue of guru devotion. In the second, I want to tell you this. In the second volume of this book I was talking about, His Holiness on the section in the section on guru devotion, and of course the fifth Dalai Lama, he just presents it as Tsongkhapa presents it, you know, right at the beginning. He says that you know, according to Gampopa, you know, the great Kaju Lama Dakpolaje, Gampopa says that in sutra practice, you should regard the guru as being like a Buddha, like a Buddha, in the same way as it says here. You should regard them as being a Buddha. And in the Pratimoksha, you should regard them as being like a Buddha, but only in Tantra do you see them as being an actual Buddha. And he said there's a difference. And so here, when we say, when you see children and animals and ordinary beings as your teachers, it's not that they are actual teachers from their own side. It's more a kind of deliberately cultivated perception in order to receive from them, you know, some kind of the best of that person. The better you see someone, the more you'll get from them. So it's like that. You know, the word regard is very important. Regard, look at. Regard means to see them as being your spiritual teacher. So he also said that, you know, if a practitioner is unable to see his guru or her guru as anything more than an ordinary being, it's not right to try and force that person to see the teacher as a Buddha. He said we should just, you know, let people see the as best they can, you know, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And he says, you know, when I think of the Dalai Lama, I often prefer to think of him as a human being who has done well, done very well, you know, rather than Chenrezig or Avalokitesvara, because it's more inspiring for me to see him as someone. I mean, okay, he had a bit of a head start because he's got 13 incarnations before, but anyway, he, you know, I have seen him change. I've seen him develop. I've seen his ideas develop, especially after Ling Rinpoche passed away, his teacher. After that, he found his own voice. He found his way. He became powerful, very confident. He said that when Ling Rinpoche died, he felt like a little bird that's fallen out of its nest. You know, he said that in the biography. But since that time, he's really developed, and you can see the way he has changed. To me, that's inspiring. You know, as and that, you know, he has actually, as a human being, he has done this, and I think if you see him that way, then that eventually enables you to see him. You can see him as Chenrezig, almost in a kind of in a way that is not forced. You know, that is not, I must see this as not like that, but it kind of, oh yeah, that is what it means. You know, and also to see Guru as a Buddha, you have to know what a Buddha is. You know, if you don't, it's important to know that what do we mean by Buddha? You know, what do we mean by an omniscient mind? What do we mean by an enlightened being that's able to manifest at any time in any place? We need to believe in that as some kind of believable phenomenon before we can see someone as being it. So, and the same with, you know, Tsongkhapa. Tsongkhapa is said to be a manifestation of Manjushri. But I also like to see him as a human being. I mean, in the beginning, you know, when he wrote some of his early works, well, I can't remember. Well, not that one, but there's oh yeah, his commentary to the Abhisamaya Alamkara, Ornament of Insight. It's not regarded as one of his best. It's not so like a pop rock star, not his best album. And it's not studied because he hadn't really found his way. And it was not until he had that magical dream one night where he dreamed about, you know, Buddha Palita. No, Buddha Palita. Maybe Buddha Palita coming over to him and putting a text on his head, and he showed him a verse from Buddha Palitas, and he woke up and he read that, and he had this sudden understanding of emptiness. And I find that inspiring. You know, I'm going to put my video on because I was doing a lot of gesticulating there, and it was pointless. If I freeze up, let me know. And also, you know, Tsongkhapa had teachings from Manjushri. You know, I mean, if he is Manjushri, what's he doing? You know, I mean, you can think of it that way. But in the beginning, he had to go through a medium, an oracle, in order to get teachings from Manjushri through his Lama. And he would go through this Lama. And it was only after some time that he actually got teachings from Manjushri himself. And at one time, Manjushri scolded him. What did he say? He said something about, well, I can't remember what he said now, but Manjushri told him not to do something, and don't do this, or something like that. And on that level, I find this realistic and very inspiring. And also, you know, Samdong Rinpoche, who used to be the prime minister of in the Tibetan government in exile, or the Kulin Tipa, and he worked closely with His Holiness when His Holiness was the political leader, and he was the prime minister. They worked together quite a lot all the time. And he said, you know, I've worked a lot with His Holiness on political matters. You know, often I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him. I argue with him. But when I take an initiation from him, he is generous. You know, and that kind of shows, doesn't it, kind of this deliberate sort of cultivation of a perception which is done for pragmatic and beneficial reasons. If you see the Lama as Chenrezig, you will receive the initiation, otherwise you won't. So like that, and all this is based upon dependent arising, dependent origination. That things don't always, you know, exist as they from their own side. You know, you think of that famous story told by Chandrakirti, or not story, but he said if there was a god, a deva, and a human being, and a hungry ghost, and they were looking at a glass of water, the glass of water would appear as ambrosia for the god, water for the human being, and sort of, you know, pus and blood, you know. So you've got these three different appearances, right? Three different appearances. Now the Chittamatra mind-only school will tell you, oh, you know, this proves that things, there is no external existence. There is nothing external. There is no external existence, you know. Like if there's two people listening to a piece of music, one loves it, one hates it, you know. And Chittamatra say, well, that proves there is no external piece of music. Oh, really? Then if a third person comes along and they hear, what are they listening to? You know, if there's nothing there, then how could it produce a sort of a, you know, how could it produce a sort of a pleasure or displeasure? So the Madhyamakas would say what it proves is that things don't have any innate, inherent existence from their own side. That, you know, there's a glass of water, but it's there, but it appears to different people in different ways according to their karmic blockages or lack of, or no blockages at all. So with that understanding, it is possible to see how you can almost chop and change, really, somehow. You know how when you do tantric practice, you sometimes in your practice you are in the form of a deity, and then you go into the form of an ordinary being, and then you go back into a deity. This sort of, you know, how is that possible? If you want to visualize all the deity in many forms in front of you, you have to visualize yourself as a deity. Otherwise, it's not possible for you as an ordinary being to engage in these mystical processes. But once you've done that, then after that, any kind of blessing or whatever happens to you as an ordinary person. So like the glass of water, something can appear in different ways. And I think this is helpful for seeing the guru, you know, or in Atisha's case, seeing all sentient beings as your parents or your children. I mean, it can be done. I mean, it can be done for those reasons. So whenever you see any sentient beings, regard them as your parents or your children. I mean, I don't think this is anything to do with the fact that all beings have been your parents in your previous life. I don't think it's that at all. I just think it's seeing them in a loving way. Your parents and your children are people you love. So if you see someone as your parent, your love and affection for them increases, even though they're not your parent. So this word regard those who set out on the path as spiritual teachers, as sentient beings, and regard all sentient beings as your parents or your children. So I think it's such an essential point. And you know, His Holiness Dalai Lama said maybe these days it would be better if we put Guru devotion topic not first in the Lamrim, but maybe further on. And he said what we should do in Lamrim, we should follow the order as it's taught in the Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is the Mundogin, the ornament of insight. There, Maitreya or Sangha, in the section on Dhammak, which means instruction, sets out these 10 types of instruction. And the first one is the two truths, the basis of practice. It's called the basis of practice. And so the two truths is, of course, you know, emptiness and conventional truth. So I think, His Holiness thinks, not me, His Holiness thinks that teachings on the two truths should be the first thing we learn when we study kind of this new Lamrim. And I think it helps very much in freeing us from these kind of rigid sort of apprehensions of things. Well, it has to be that way, otherwise, you know, or even if something is not, you know, trying to force something on somebody. This person, I want to see this person as that, but it's difficult if there's even if it's like even a you know, some people say that in Tantra it's very useful to have a Chittamatra view of the world, i.e. that everything is created by the mind, that there is no external reality at all. It's just all from our own perception, our own sort of innate, our own instincts, imprints from previous lives. And that helps very much. You know, if you want to see yourself as a deity, right? You're not a deity, but you see yourself as one. You don't become one, you know, as His Holiness said. I gave an initiation once. He said, after powerful initiation, he said, okay, initiation's finished. Now go back to Lamrim. So, you know, it's not that somehow you enter into Tantra and you become sort of great yogi or yogini. It's not like that. So he can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back.
Yes, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to go through very quickly because it's going to. The next verse says, drop any feelings of hostility or ill will and be happy wherever you choose to go. Okay, hostility, yes. Hostility. It means, the word ill will means an unhappy mind in Tibetan. Unhappy, you know, sort of grumpy, negative, black ill will, sort of, you know, where you go out and you sort of like these old men who walk along the streets grumbling to themselves. And they can get rid of that. And it says, wherever you go, be happy. Yeah, there are two translations. It's not so clear. Be happy wherever you go. But Jimba says that go where there is happiness. So go where there is happiness, or be happy where you go. I mean, the Tibetan reads as it could be either, but I think one is here. It sounds better. Wherever you go, be happy. It makes a lot of sense, you know. Be happy wherever you go. Don't be happy, yeah. And it says, avoid getting attached to anything at all. Avoid getting attached. Yeah. Don't be attached to anything. Don't be attached to anything, and abide in a state of non-attachment. The English has used three different words here: attached, craving, and desire. But Tibetan is just one. It's just one word. Tibetan's vocabulary is the same word, chakpa. Chakpa means attachment. De chak means desire. Chak means is feeling of, you know, it's being stuck. You're attached. Yeah, but it also does mean desire. Craving always sounds like someone who's just given up smoking, right? Dying for a cigarette. I don't think it quite means that, but you know, craving always thinks it's rather strong. I know it's a word that's used, but craving is like, yeah, a little bit strong. Desire and attachment. Interesting. In Tibetan, there are two words for desire. One is a good desire, one is a bad desire. So the desire for enlightenment is doba, and that's okay. It's a good word, you know. Chanju Semba Yanda De, Chanju Semba, to desire for enlightenment. Chanju Zoba Chanju Yanda De. But chak is different. So, but in English, we have the word desire seems to carry both meanings, doesn't it? You know, you desire to help others, or you desire another piece of chocolate cake. So, same word, right? Isn't it? I don't know, want, desire. Anyway, it says here, chakpa, same word, attachment not only keeps you from happy rebirths. Dendro means, you know, life as a human or a god. It kills the life of liberation. Yes, it cuts the life. It kills, yeah. Because being attached is the opposite of being free, isn't it? No, if you are attached to something, you are not free. And the word free sometimes in English seems to have the meaning of being able to do whatever you want. But that's not the meaning of freedom. that is attachment dressed up as freedom, right? I can do whatever I want. I want to do this, so I'm going to do it. I want to go for a drink. I can be free. No one's going to stop me. That isn't freedom. That's just living a life of attachment. But freedom means not being controlled by that, not being sort of driven by, I want to do this. So it's the opposite, really. You know, it's the opposite. So that's freedom is a kind of cutting off of attachment. And if you cut that off, if you don't cut that off, then freedom is dead. Liberation is not possible. It's simply not there because you know, freedom, they say, you should be like a bird flying in the sky, that a bird leaves no footprints, you know, that leaves no trace in the sky, like that. And then it says, should you find a way to peace and happiness, strive constantly to put into practice. Yeah, this means come to dojo. It actually, in Tibetan, it says, if you see a particular dharma or a particular practice, I think is better, that leads to happiness, that you think it leads to happiness, then go for it. You know, it's quite important. You know, we as Buddhists who are constantly exposed to every single tantric practice and every kind of practice that's ever existed, sometimes we have too much choice. For us, Dharma is a bit like a supermarket. There's so many things. You could do this. I think in the old days, they just did one thing at a time. I remember when I was in Dharamsala, I lived next door to this monk, and he spent about a year meditating on the hell realms. That's all he meditated on. He was very happy, but he told me, he said, yeah, I meditate on the hell realms, because I don't know whether his teacher told him, but that's what he did, you know. And so let me just try myself again. He meditated on the hell realm. But I remember in the Lama, in the mind training teachings, it says, start with what bothers you the most. Start with your biggest affliction. If you're angry, start with that and concentrate on meditating on love. Forget everything else. And I think that's really sensible advice. You know, you choose the thing that is particular, specific to your personality. You know, Ling Rinpoche once said to me, he said, you know, practicing Dharma doesn't make us clones of each other. We won't all turn out the same. You know, everyone different. Everyone's got a different personality, and they're, although generally the same, sometimes we need to concentrate on certain things. You know, I need to concentrate on, say, being more patient and be more concentrated, more focused. Other people might need something else. So this line here, if you find a, it doesn't say if, it says whatever you see as practice as being the path to happiness, do that. Yeah, because then the next line sort of reinforces that. Whatever task you set out to do, do that first. That way everything will turn out well. Otherwise, nothing will succeed. I mean, Shantideva says the same. You know, you do that. Otherwise, we get pulled here, pulled there. I'll try this. Oh, I'll do this retreat. I'll do that. And then you know, you end up with nothing really being accomplished. So I think that takes a lot of skill and patience. And maybe that's why we need a really good teacher or lama. And if we don't have one, we have to look into ourselves and say, well, what is it that I need more than anything else? And just practice that, you know. And there are there's certainly enough types of Buddhism these days that you can just pick and choose. If you don't want to analyze and you don't want to study, fine. You practice Guru devotion like Roger, you know, you become a Roger, you know, who's devoted his entire life to serving Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Fantastic, you know, that's his way, that's his path. It's not the path for everybody, but you know, he found his path after he got out of his motorcycle gangs in Australia. So there, I think that's really important. Nothing to say. Then it goes on. Never take pleasure in acts of harm. Yeah, yeah, obviously not. You know. Then when thoughts of superiority creep in, deflate your self-importance. Ben says, whenever you, ta means whenever you feel too up, high. I think Jimba translates this as self-cherishing, but the word ta just means up. You feel inflated, you feel sort of puffed up, you feel full up, you feel, yeah, I feel so fantastic, great, you know, something's good's happened, you've done something well. And it says, whenever those type of minds arise, whenever that happens, then, you know, break your pride. The word, in Tibetan, they use the word break for pride. You break it. You break your pride, you know. So, yeah. And remember your lama's instructions. Remember your lama's instructions. Whenever you feel discouraged or inadequate. Okay, this word's important. There's one, again, like Tibetan has one word, shumba. Shumba means a mind that is sunk, down, depressed, down. It's the complete opposite of confidence. You know, and it's a very important term. It's, you know, it means shumba. The very word means when you feel down, useless, you know, unable to do anything, helpless, depressed. That shumba. When that happens, it says, raise your spirits and encourage yourself. Oh, it says in Tibetan, it says, praise your mind, lift your mind up. Yeah, lift your mind up and give yourself some praise, some encouragement. I know. Now I know, it's, you have to be careful here, because obviously there's nothing worse when someone's feeling depressed, clinically depressed, or even just down, for you to come along and say, oh, come on, cheer up, for Christ's sake. Snap out of it. That doesn't work, does it? No. So you have to be a little careful here, but this is advice for yourself. It's not for you to go around telling people to be happy. No. And obviously, if you're suffering from clinical depression, that's a different matter. I don't think Atisha's talking about that. I was thinking when there are times when you feel things get on top of you, that too much, and you don't seem to be making any progress, and you're still the same old, screwball that you used to be, and nothing's happening, and then or things like that, or life isn't going well, and you've reached a certain age, and there's nothing, that kind of stuff. At that time, you need to meditate on two things, I think, precious human rebirth and Buddha nature. So precious human rebirth is, you don't have to go through all those 18 and think about the turtle. Not just being a human being with a mind that's able to think and able to get up in the morning and do a day's work. That in itself is a blessing. I mean, it's amazing. When we're young, we spend the first 10 years immature child. We spend the next 10, 15 years wasting our lives on being a teenager. then when we get old, we can't do anything. There's this small window in the middle, when we are fresh. I mean, we are so fortunate. I mean, we really are fortunate as Westerners. And sometimes when I see people complaining about this, I think, go and live in India. I mean, really, we do have a lot going for us. I remember once when I was talking to my Tibetan neighbors in Dharamshala, I said, we were about to go back to England, and I was complaining about, I don't know, the journey or the getting to Delhi, and she turned to me, she said, we can't even go back to our own country. And that meant I was stopped in my tracks. She said, we can't go back. And she said, you should, you can go here, you can go there. You're very fortunate. And I said, yeah, you're right. And I felt, that was a great teaching for me. So we sometimes need to count our blessings rather than our misfortunes when you feel down. I mean, I know it's not easy, but anyway, I think that's kind of what it says. When you feel discouraged or inadequate, raise your spirits, courage, and meditate on emptiness. In the Tibetan, there are two versions here. One says, meditate on the emptiness of both, i.e. both those two things, because both of them, if you look carefully, if you think, they both involve a sense of I. I am great. Wow, I've done this, I'm useless, I'm so poor, I'm hope. They both have a sense of I. Of course, the I, it's from an ordinary point of view, it's true. I am here, I have done this, I do feel that. But that kind of rather excessive sort of preoccupation with who I am or who I am not is something that can be lessened if one understands, that I, like a sort of moon in the water, is there, very existing, but, or like the rope that appears as a snake, exists, but doesn't necessarily have to have this kind of, strong, solid appearance that makes you feel depressed or makes you feel proud. So I think it's a bit like that, emptiness. As Aryadeva says, I think I told you last time, if you've got any doubts, meditate on emptiness. You know, I mean, not that I have no understanding of emptiness, but when you think, you know, there's a difference, by the way, between, you know, you should differentiate between understanding the view and perceiving emptiness are different. Understanding the view is understanding a view is the way you view the world. If you view the world in terms of dependent arising and things arising from cause and effects, and yet having no innate existence from their own side, that's a view. You can kind of carry that with you. That's not a perception of emptiness. A perception of emptiness is because it's a perception of the ultimate truth. Perception of emptiness is done in meditation, where you can perceive the ultimate truth either directly or conceptually, indirectly, you know, and that is a meditative experience. So meditate on emptiness often means both. Get the view of emptiness. The view of emptiness is something it's always at the back of your mind. So, you know, when they talk about when you give, you try and see the emptiness of the person who's giving, the person who's receiving, and the gift. And these called the three. I mean, it's not that when you give that you somehow see the emptiness of these three. No, not at all. But you remember. You know, in the practice called the I think it's the 4 mindfulnesses, or 3. One of them is emptiness, and often you'll see the advice, remember emptiness, and the word remember is important. You remember in the sense of you recall it, you bring it up in your mind, and it doesn't mean that suddenly everything disappears and becomes sort of empty and there's kind of space, like, not that. It just means remember the view. Remember the view that all these things exist, they don't appear, they don't exist in the way they appear. Recall the view. So I think it's important to understand the difference between having a view of emptiness, the right view, the right view, right? The right view of the you know, the perfect view. The eightfold path, isn't it? Yeah, right view, right attitude. Yeah, I can't remember them. Anyway, yeah, the view of emptiness. Always meditate. And carrying on from that, it says, should the objects of attachment or aversion appear, view them as no more than illusions or projections. Should you hear unpleasant words, consider them as nothing more than echoes. Yeah, so whenever an object of attachment appears, come to show you, whenever an object of attachment appear, see them as being guma. Guma means yeah, an illusion. It's often used in Indian scriptures to refer to these magicians who create illusory elephants. You must have read, you know, I would have liked to meet these magicians. They sound like an amazing guy. They can create magic elephants out of nothing. I mean, you know, I always think, you know, move over David Copperfield. You know, I mean, these guys were something else. Anyway, so a guma is a Maya is Maya in Tibetan, in Sanskrit, isn't it? Maya. Buddha's mother was called Maya, wasn't she? Yeah. So it's an illusion, and things are said to be, they're not illusions. You will always see this word like an illusion. They're not illusions, but they are like an illusion, you know. And the other word he's got, projection, here is the same word as emanation, tulpa or tulku. So it actually means something that is created out of nothing. So they very similar meaning, really, but yeah, shin, see them see them as no more than, yeah, see them as being like illusions. And should you hear unpleasant words, see them as echoes. Yeah, that's difficult, huh? Someone says really unpleasant, or yeah, I think everyone who takes offense There seem to be a lot of people who take offense these days. They should maybe try this one, see them as echoes, and they wouldn't take offense. I mean, an echo is, I don't know, echo is there's a garden just around here. And if you stand at one particular spot, I think it's somewhere in America that does it. You stand in one particular spot and you shout, and it kind of echoes. I don't know how it works, but it's amazing. And it's enjoyable, but you never think it's someone talking, do you? It's always, you know what it is, an echo. So you don't get attached to it. You don't get sort of hung up by it. So, but the problem with words are, especially if you happen to be on Facebook, is that they have such a powerful effect, don't they? People get so upset about words. And, if someone says anything bad to you, unpleasant to you, then if you think about it, what happens at that time is that the words seem to strike you like a knife in the heart, and they are a direct attack on me as a personality. At that time, you have a choice. If you want to meditate on sort of emptiness, you can remember the view of emptiness in terms of yourself, that here I am, who is this I who's getting so upset, this unfindable I that has never been found anywhere by anybody, and here it is getting upset. Or you can meditate on the words themselves as having no innate existence. They're just words that are produced by sort of the movement of the vocal cords, a rather unpleasant, motivated by an angry mind, and out they come. It's like the wind in the trees. If you sit at night in India, if you hear the wind in the trees, it's an amazing sound, isn't it? But it's only because there's trees and there's wind. If there were no trees and no wind, there'd be no sound. So these things don't have any innate sort of properties in of themselves without depending upon other factors. They're dependently arising. So see them as echoes, but it's not easy to see something as an echo. But I mean, according to Tsongkhapa, seeing, when he says, see all things as dreams, as illusions, he said, really, for that to happen, you have got to perceive or understand emptiness first. You cannot just go straight to seeing things as illusions. You can't, because you can only know they're illusions by understanding why they're illusions, by understanding how they don't have any innate existence. Once that is done, then they will arise as illusions. On the path of seeing, in the Arya path, the bodhisattvas and the Arya beings, they meditate in meditation. They do not see conventional existence. They only see emptiness. The innate, the ultimate final nature of all phenomena appears to them as a reality, the final reality. When they come out of meditation, that disappears and everything comes back again. Well, the whole world comes back again, but there's a difference. From then on, they don't appear as real. They don't appear, they have this kind of illusory quality about them. They're like this dreamlike quality. So, but that's only possible because they have previously meditated on, understood emptiness. I mean, Tsongkhapa says this, I think, in his Illuminating the Intent, which Jimba, as I pointed out, Jimpa has already translated. Very good book. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes some people think they read this, oh, all things are dreams, they're illusions, they're like the stars in the daytime, they're like dew on the grass, and everything's illusory. So they kind of switch in to illusory mode and try to see, if you try to see things as illusions, Tsongkhapa says, if you understand the emptiness of a mountain, the mountain doesn't start to quiver as if it was like some sort of pixelated. It doesn't. That doesn't happen. And if you sort of switch into, I think to see things as an illusion, you have to understand why they are illusory, why they are like dreams and not real. I mean, otherwise, I'm not quite sure that it works, because there's no reasoning. There's no reasoning behind it. I suppose it might work in the same way as if you see all sentient beings as mothers and children, and your lama as a guru. I mean, you can possibly, it might work. I don't know. See something as illusion. But then if you see it, if you go too far, if a mad bull is running towards you at 100 miles an hour, and you say it's all right, it's an illusion, you're dead, right? So I mean, that's maybe an extreme example, but illusory doesn't. There's a danger of two things. First of all, thinking that if something's illusory, it doesn't exist at all. I don't have to worry about it. I can commit all kinds of wrong things. It doesn't matter, just illusory. Or the whole idea, as John Carper said, the whole idea of things being illusory is actually seen as truly existing. As there is nothing that is truly existing, even emptiness is not truly existing. So if you meditate on illusions and something is being illusory, and in that process, that perception of the illusion is perceived as if it exists from its own side. Tsongkhapa said, this is like putting fire out with fire. It's incurable. And no matter what you do, you're using the very thing you're trying to destroy. You're using the very thing you're trying to destroy as the destroyer. It doesn't work. So anyway, yeah. Okay, let's move on. Should you suffer physical harm, see it as a result of your past actions. Yeah. Okay, very good. Another very difficult, but there you go. Yeah, see it as a result of your of past karma. Yeah. No. Okay. Again, it should be done with wisdom, discernment. Otherwise, you have to be. There once upon a time there was the football manager of the English national side was a bit of a spiritual person, he kind of believed in karma. And in football stadiums, disabled people were usually get in the front row, in the front rows. And he was talking about that, and he happened to mention that people who are disabled because of something they did in their past lives. Well, you can imagine he didn't last long after that, of that comment. But I think this is a misunderstanding of karma, isn't it? This sort of you see someone suffering by the side of the road. Well, it's their karma, man. What to do? This is about a way of lessening our own pain and of not feeling the victim. Not being a victim that poor me. Why everyone else having a good time except me, and I've got this illness, or I got this something or other. It's for that. It's not about passing judgment on other people's disabilities. So anyway, I think again it should be done with discernment. Yeah. And it says, keep entirely to solitude. We're not going to finish, are we? Keep entirely to solitude, far away from home. Where's that? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Better, same word, gomba, solitude. Yeah. And then like the carcass of some wild animal. Stay in. This is the story, isn't it? When animals die, they crawl away into the jungle and hide themselves and die. I think it's that ridak. Ridak means more like antelope or something like the yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah. And stay hidden in nature all by yourself. Dagi, Dagni, Beja, Shing. I don't think there's anything about nature.